Welcome back to the learning path, packaging your AWS Lambda functions as container images. This is the fourth session in your learning path, deploying your functions using the AWS SAM CLI. In this session, you'll learn how to create an ECR repository using the command line. You'll learn how to build, package, and deploy your Lambda function using AWS SAM CLI. And you'll learn how to make changes to that function and update your Lambda function, again, using the AWS SAM CLI. Let's get started. As before, you'll need to create an ECR repository to store your container images. This time, let's do it from the command line, using the command AWS ECR create repository. The command takes one mandatory argument, repository name. We've named this random letter AWS SAM CLI to distinguish it from the repository that you created in the previous session. We've also set scan on push to be true for the image scanning configuration, as you did before in the console. The CLI creates your repository and returns some information. Be sure to copy this repository URI, as you'll need it when you deploy your application with SAM. If you look at the structure of this application, the random letter folder contains the exact same code from the previous session, an app.js file with your Lambda function written in Node.js, a Docker file with instructions on how to build it, and a package.json file that lists dependencies and other information about the application. The difference is in the template.yaml file. This is an AWS SAM CLI template, which is a CloudFormation template with a serverless transformation. In the template is defined a single AWS Lambda function, the random letter function. The thing that you'll note is different about this function from serverless functions you may have written in the past is that the metadata section highlighted on the screen contains information for Docker to build the image. In this case, a Docker tag, the Docker context, which is the path to the build location, and the Docker file. Naming or specifying the Docker file allows you to specify a different Docker file for different environments or for other requirements. We've also added an HTTP API endpoint so that we can test our function once it's deployed. By giving that as an output, the SAM template will give us the complete URL to test. You can access a similar template by running SAM init from the command line, and this gives you several options for quick starts in different runtimes. When you're ready to build the application, run SAM build. When SAM finishes building your application, it gives you a hint about the next step. To deploy your function, run SAM deploy -- guided. It walks you through a series of questions to help you deploy your app. In this case, we're going to name our stack random letter AWS SAM CLI to distinguish it from the stack that you deployed in the previous step. Choose a region and provide the repository that you copied when you created your ECR repository. Choose whether to confirm changes before deployment, allow IAM role creation. You'll need to specify that it's okay that the random letter function does not have authorization defined. Save your arguments to a configuration file named samconfig.toml as a default environment, and SAM deploys your application. SAM uploads your function to the ECR repo you specified. It creates an AWS Lambda function using the image that you push, and it returns the HTTP API endpoint when your function is ready to be invoked. Once SAM finishes deploying your application, copy the URL provided in the output, curl it, and save the output to our random letter. This sends an HTTP request to the API gateway, which invokes the Lambda function and in return generates a random letter. If we open the file randomletter.pdf, we see that our Lambda function has run as expected and generated a letter with random output. One benefit of using the AWS SAM CLI is that it helps you deploy updates to your Lambda function more easily. Let's make the same change we made before. Open app.js and reinsert a fake country into our address. Save your file, run SAM build again. Once your function finishes building, this time you can run simply SAM deploy because you've saved your SAM configuration. SAM will deploy your updated function to the repository and update your Lambda function configuration to use the new image. Once your SAM deployment completes, you can again curl the endpoint. This time, save it as a file random letter with country. Wait for our function to finish running. And if we open the random letter with country, we see that we did indeed get the country now. So our change has been deployed and our function has been updated. So now you've seen how to build, package, and deploy Lambda functions using both the AWS Management Console and the AWS SAM CLI. Let's review what you've learned. In this session, you learned how to create an ECR repository using the AWS CLI. You learned how to package, build, and deploy Lambda functions using AWS SAM CLI. And you learned how to make changes to your code and update your Lambda functions using the AWS SAM CLI. For additional resources, see Sessions with SAM and the AWS Lambda Support for Container Images launch blog at the URLs shown on this slide. In the next session, you're going to learn some tips and tricks for optimizing your Lambda functions packaged as container images. I hope you found this useful. Thank you for joining us. As always, this and more information about building serverless applications is available at serverlessland.com.